Morning YouTube. This is an early morning video, so I'm sorry if I look like crap. But I just want to talk a little bit about mental health and about hearing voices, about religion and about violence. I had suggested to someone else that they might include some of this content in one of their videos or comments, but it hasn't happened, so I'll just put these ideas out there and see what people think. I'm going to be stating some facts here that I'm not absolutely certain about. So if there's anybody out there who's got more experience in these areas, particularly in the areas of mental health, I'd really appreciate either your critique of my comments telling me I'm wrong, or your support to tell me I'm in the right area. But I want to talk about the relationship, as I say, between mental health, particularly the mental health issues that result in a person hearing voices. I want to talk about religion, and particularly the religious gesture of hearing the voice of God, and about violence. Okay, mental health first. Some people who have schizo-affective disorders or related mental health conditions hear voices. They hear the voices of people talking in their heads, or the voices of entities. Of those people, a very, very, very small percentage are violent. Okay? Most people who hear voices in their head are not violent. A very small percentage are violent. As a group of all the people who hear voices in their head, they are less violent than many other groups. Groups such as Millwall supporters, groups such as people who drink more than 2 beers in a bar. Many other groups in society have a far higher percentage or display much more violent activity than people with mental health issues who hear voices. In fact, people who hear voices in their head are far, far, far more likely to be the subjects, the victims of violence, than the perpetrators of violence and assaults and attacks of all kinds, not just in real life but on the internet as well. Far more likely to be the victims of violence than the perpetrators. Okay, let's just put religion into that mix. Some religious people, a small percentage of religious people, claim to hear the voice of God. Claiming to hear the voice of God, if you're a religious person, unless you have a diagnosed mental condition, is not the same thing as hearing voices in the head if you have a mental condition. They are different things, completely different things. Now, a very, very small percentage of religious people do indeed have a schizo-affective condition which allows them to hear voices in the head. And of those, some people do attribute that voice to God. Okay? A very small percentage attribute that voice to God. And of that vanishingly small percentage of people who are both religious, hear voices in their head because of a schizo-affective disorder or a related condition, of that small percentage of people, a tiny minority is violent. And when that happens, when all those three comes together in that kind of perfect storm of mythic proportions, that's when it makes the newspapers. That's when you get the Tony with a number of numbers after them. That's when you get the high-profile events that make Fox News. When you're going to get 2 out of 3, you don't get so much. If Jared Luffner had a Bible in his back pocket when he shot Gifford, he would be one of the hallowed few right now. If Valerie Solanas had talked about the Bible rather than the Scum Manifesto, she would be one of the hallowed few right now. But that perfect storm, which is so attractive in a kind of Hollywood sense, that the newspapers and the media immediately jump on it, is extremely, extremely rare. In fact, of course it's rare, otherwise it wouldn't be in the news, would it? I mean, that's why it's on the news, because it's rare. The vast majority of people who are religious and talk about the voice of God are not schizophrenic. The vast majority of schizophrenics are not violent. And the number of people who are violent, schizophrenic, and claim to hear the voice of God is really, really tiny. And people tend to confuse those. People tend to blur the edges between those distinctions. And I think it's an important set of distinctions to make. Thanks very much.